Good evening. I will call to order Wilsonville City Council meeting for March 4, 2019 at 7:06 p.m. and request a roll call, please.
Councilor West. Here. Council President Ackerval. Here. Mayor Knapp.
Here.
And both Councilor Lehan and Stevens are excused.
Thank you very much. Would the audience please rise and join us in a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council, I would be open to a motion on approval for order of agenda.
Your Honor, I move that we approve the order of agenda.
A second.
Moved and second, we approve order of agenda. Copies are available on the counter at the side of the room if anyone would like to have one. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. We have the pleasure of welcoming Metro Councilor Dirksen tonight to give us a little update, as he is wont to do periodically, on how things are going at the Metro level. Good evening.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. Good to see you. Thank you for inviting me to come and meet with you again. My name's Craig Dirksen. I'm the Metro Councilor for District 3, which includes Wilsonville and all of the communities in the southwest portion of the Portland metro area, from Charbonneau on the south all the way up to Tualatin Valley Highway on the north, and basically from I-5 west. See if I can make this work. And
Slideshow.
where do I
Slideshow.
set up slideshow? From beginning? Yes. Pink. There we go.
There you go.
So as usual, as you may know, Metro has several responsibilities, and so as usual, we're doing a lot of things at once. So I'll try to zoom through the updates fairly quickly, and then if there's something that catches someone's eye, or if you have questions on something, we can go back and we can talk more about that. As you may know, I mean, you have some new faces on your council, and we do as well. We have 3 new members of our council, 2 councilors, one Christine Lewis that represents essentially Clackamas County area, and Councilor Juan Carlos Gonzalez, which represents Western Washington County. And then, of course, we have a new Metro Council President, Lynn Peterson. So one of the things we've been doing between the first of the year and now is kind of going through a get-to-know-you session and doing several strategic meetings to discuss what we're planning on doing and what everybody's interested in doing. One of the things that Metro does is we're responsible for about 17,000 acres of parks and open space all around the Portland metro area. The picture there is the new visitor center at Oxbow Regional Park, which is on the Sandy River. That's Metro's largest park in East Multnomah County. And the center features informational displays about the park, its geology, plants and animals, as well as art that's reflective of the park's surroundings. These projects were funded by 2013's voter-approved Parks and Nature Levy, along with some other funding sources. Now, if you've been to Oxbow, then you know what a special place that it is. If you haven't been there, it's a great way to spend an afternoon or even a weekend, because there is camping there as well. And someday soon, here on the west side, we'll have at Chehalem Ridge Park a comparable space with forest and expansive views of Western Washington County and the Coast Range. So the 1995 and the 2006 Metro Natural Areas bonds are retiring. They've been very successful in preserving over 14,000 acres, bringing 14,000 acres of land into public ownership, and then going in and restoring these areas to their natural states. But voters across the greater Portland area may have an opportunity this November to renew a Parks and Nature bond. that would continue protecting clean water and restoring fish and wildlife habitat and connecting people with nature closer to home. The Metro Council in January signaled its intent to develop a package of proposed investments to consider sending to the ballot this November. Being informed by community input, an initial framework is focused on racial equity and climate resiliency across 6 areas of investment: land acquisition and restoration, improvements at existing metro parks, community grants to other parks providers around the region, similar to what we did with the other 2 bond measures, local government allocations, direct allocations to local parks providers, and also improvements to trails and extensions of the trail system, and also urban transformation projects. What's that? That's in areas that are already within the urban area and in our developed areas, but are park deficient, and identifying places that aren't already natural areas that can be restored to a natural area in order to provide local neighborhoods with better access to parks and open space. Chehalem Ridge is on the, as you can guess, in the Chehalem Mountains to the north and west of here. It's south of Forest Grove and east of Gaston, with views down into that valley where with Spring Hill wetlands and all those areas are, Wapato Lake, and to the west would be Henry Haig Lake. This is about 1,100 acres right on the ridge line. It includes a bunch of where streams begin that flow down and into the Tualatin River. Also has some beautiful forest land that we can, some of which was originally tree farms, and now it can be restored back to natural forest. It will provide areas for hiking and picnicking, and actually in horseback riding and some other things too, as we move forward with improvements and provide access in that area. Something else exciting that Metro does is we work in garbage and recycling. And if you didn't know it, is we're responsible for coordinating all the solid waste collection in the Portland metro area. So when the garbage truck comes to your house and gets your garbage, they bring that to us and we have to figure out what to do with it. And a truck with about 30 tons of compressed garbage leaves the Portland metro area headed east about every 20 minutes to our landfill in Gillum County. And we're looking for ways to do other things with waste and reduce the amount of waste that goes into landfills. And so we are creating what we're calling the 2030 Regional Waste Plan, looking at the way we do things now and how can we do things differently in the future. Most of our contracts that we have with current haulers and waste and the people within the waste community are up at the end of this year. So it's an opportunity to take a look at how we do things and figure out what we should do differently. Last July, the Metro Council adopted a regional requirement that certain high volume businesses, that they separate their food scraps from garbage beginning in 2020. This is places like restaurants or schools or institutions that would create over 1,000 pounds a week of food scraps. And it's actually the single largest component of our garbage that goes into landfills is food scraps. It's about 20% of the total of what we put in landfills. We'd like to get that out for a couple of reasons. It's a huge producer of methane in our landfills, which then needs to be dealt with. We don't want to vent it into the atmosphere. It's flammable, so you need to deal with it, figure out a way to do that. And also, frankly, it's too valuable to just bury in the ground. It's very high, there's a lot of energy in it. And we can do other things with it, like generate methane from it that can then be burned and make electricity. There's lots of things you could do with it. And, but in order to get a business that would be willing to take on that and do something with it, we need to be able to guarantee to them a percentage or a certain amount of tonnage every year before they'd be willing to create the facility to do that. So by requiring high volume producers of food scraps to separate out, then we create that certainty of collection. So then we can figure out something valuable we can do with it instead of just putting it into the ground. In the area of transportation, a lot of things are going on. We are looking to, in the aftermath of the legislature passing House Bill 2017 to provide improved state funding for transportation. Metro has looked at what that does and what the gaps still are, and what we can do regionally to fill those gaps to actually be able to build the transportation system that we need. So we're looking at whether or not to pursue a transportation bond measure in November of 2020. Now, keep in mind, the parks measure that we're considering this year wouldn't be a raise in taxes because the existing bond measures are retiring, so we would be keeping the same tax rate, but have a new bond measure that would continue us to do our work into the future. This transportation measure would be a new tax, and what exactly it would be, we don't know yet. We haven't decided if we're going to do it, and if we do it, what it will be. But if we're looking to do that in 2020. We've taken a poll to get a snapshot of where the electorate is on this, and we found that there is a high priority and there's a high willingness amongst the people of the Portland metro area to pay more for improvements that will reduce congestion and give people more transportation choices. By no means this 2020 ballot measure is not a slam dunk. We have a lot of work to do to build a transportation measure that voters can trust and support. So we're working on building that coalition today and identifying what kinds of projects and what projects people would support. The main takeaway from the poll is that whatever we do, it needs to be a program that'll provide benefit to everyone. So our Transportation Measure Steering Committee has just been created and has had its first meeting to discuss how to shape that 2020 measure. And we'll continue to update you on those discussions, though Mr. Knapp sits on that committee, so we'll be able to help us out and help you out with knowing where that is going. An area that we've already taken action is in affordable housing. We passed a regional affordable housing bond in November of 2018, and this will provide about $653 million that we will distribute to the housing authorities across the Portland metro area, the 3 counties, plus the 4 largest cities, Hillsborough, Beaverton, Portland, and Gresham, that qualify for housing money directly. They already have the responsibility for providing affordable housing, but they've lacked the resources needed to meet that demand. And so we as the region were encouraged to go to the voters using our taxing authority to bring in a measure that would provide funding that would tax everyone equally, and the money could be distributed to where it needs to be distributed across the Portland metro area. So we are creating a committee there as well that will review applicants and forms to make sure that the projects that are presented and suggested meet the requirements of the bond measure. Let me see what I've missed from my notes here. Yeah, to make sure the local plans are reasonable proposals to use each jurisdiction's portion of the housing bond. They'll also be responsible for tracking the construction of the anticipated 3,900 housing units that'll be planned, that'll come from the bond measure. The group's first meeting was February 6th. This program was approved by 59% of the region's voters in November of 2018. It's aimed at providing stable housing, affordable housing for up to 12,000 people in Greater Portland. This work is going to take time. As you know, it can take months to go just from a concept to permitting to construction, but we're excited to give you updates as we go along. Another thing that Metro does is we provide different kinds of grants to the jurisdictions within the Portland metro area. Right now, we've got the 2040 Planning and Development grants are underway, creating equitable housing and economic opportunities by helping communities prepare for their future. Grant Cycle 7 is open, accepting letters of intent through March 8th, so not much time left. And then community placemaking grants. These are supportive of creative projects that empower and involve community members to make changes that they want to see in their neighborhoods. Metro accepted applications for the 2019 cycle between January 4th and February 4th. Grant awards will be announced in late April, we expect. Then finally, a new program, the Pilot Grant Program, will fund projects that test how recent innovations in transportation technology can benefit communities in the region and share lessons learned. Awards of up to $150,000 are available to support teams of public agencies, nonprofit organizations, or private companies to design and implement projects that test innovative approaches to providing equitable, shared, or active transportation options. This is one of the ways that Metro, as the transportation planner for the region, is reacting to the changing and improving technologies, and how can we anticipate and explore how we can take advantage of those. There's news at the Oregon Convention Center. As you may remember, we have contracts in place and construction is underway to build a new convention center hotel that's has risen to its full height of 14 stories just north of the convention center. And we anticipate that it will open either at the end of this year or maybe the very beginning of next year. It will allow us to host more and much larger conventions than we ever have in the past, which would increase the amount of money that flows into businesses around the Portland metro area. In anticipation of that hotel being completed, we're doing a $39 million upgrade to the convention center, bringing it up to snuff so it will be equivalent to what people will experience at the hotel as well. The public-private sector partnership provides the region with more than $120 million in local tourism spending and $10 million in new tax revenue each year. Once the hotel opens, the metropolitan region can expect total convention center related spending to approach upwards of $1 billion, with a B, $1 billion a year of economic activity generated by the convention center. By attracting new events, the hotel is projected to increase the demand for all hotels in the Portland region by 70,000 to 110,000 new room nights a year. One thing that's going to be is the Portland Women's Expo. This event has been the #1 choice for a girlfriend's day out for over 20 years. And recently, the Oregon Convention Center also hosted the Wizard World Comic-Con. It was a big event. You may have seen that in the papers as well. And in March, we'll have the Nonprofit Technology Conference. We'll be there as well. Also in March, the Shamrock Fitness Fair and the Northwest Youth Careers Expo. For later events, visit the bottom of the homepage. We also operate the Portland 5 Centers for the Arts. There's a showcase of upcoming events to celebrate the heritage, history, culture, and faith. Presents the Noontime Showcase, bite-sized entertainment for you to squeeze into your lunch hour. These free monthly performances will feature some of Portland's most popular acts. So there's always things going on at the Centers for the Arts. These include, of course, the Keller Auditorium and the Schnitz, also the Winning Stat. What are the other ones? Can't think of the other three. I apologize. There's 5 of them. We also own and operate the Oregon Zoo. And as you may be aware, we've been in a construction mode for quite a while. We anticipate being done with our construction by the end of next year, at which time we will have rebuilt over 40% of the zoo. If you haven't been up there in the last few years, I encourage you to go and see some of the new things. If you haven't seen the new elephant, well, it's not really new anymore, but the elephant lands, it's truly spectacular. And currently under construction, we've got the new polar passage for polar bears. Also, we're reconstructing the primates area and doubling the size of the rhinoceros exhibit. As it is on the screen, In an effort to make the zoo more accessible to lower income, we have special second Tuesdays where rates are lower, encouraging people to go during the week. And then, of course, the Expo Center. You can hop on the Max line and then run out to the Expo Center and attend local community events that entertain the kids, acquire collectibles, maybe drive off in a brand new RV. Without the car, the tequila and tacos will be more fun also. America's largest antique and collectible show happened yesterday, 1st through the 3rd. Items from your past provoke wonderful memories, such as the toys that your mom threw away, your grandmother's cookie jar, garden antiques, board games, and memorabilia. And the Portland Metro Dealers 61st RV show takes place in March, just in time to purchase the wheels that you need for your summer excursion. Those are all the things that are happening around Metro right now. I'd be happy to entertain any questions you might have on any of the issues that I've brought up or anything else that you think of that Metro might be involved in.
Wow, lots of stuff. Thank you so much. You did not mention, however, the largest antique car swap meet west of the Mississippi River that happens at Expo first weekend in April, so every year. So
An important one as well.
upcoming. Council, questions from Mr. Dirksen? Councilor Akkerval.
I was curious to hear about the pilot grant. Is that correct? The new technology transportation? So I wasn't quite clear on do you have examples of applications that have already been put forward or projects that are underway, or are you still collecting applications at this point? It sounds like an interesting.
Actually, we've just finished, the deadline for applying has just passed. I'm the council liaison to that committee, and we're meeting this Friday to review the applications that we have and consider which ones to fund.
Yeah, okay.
The money that we have.
So maybe at the next update, it'll be interesting to hear the outcomes from that. It sounds like an interesting project.
Some examples of those are community ride shares or apps for your phone that would help you connect for carpool, those kinds of things. Funding for using electric cars for low in a car share way for low-income housing developments, those kinds of things. Been interesting, the different applications we got from the different groups, from very diverse groups, all the way from nonprofits across the region to companies to Waze. The Waze app has applied for a grant to explore ways to create a carpool rideshare thing throughout with using their platform. So a lot of interesting options and it's going to be innovative. Some of them will work, some of them won't. Exactly. That's why we're doing the pilot programs, to find out which ones do and which ones don't.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor West.
So I grew up not far from the zoo, and I, in my travels, sometimes go to zoos all over the place, and I'm so proud of our zoo, even for its size and what it's done. As a foster parent, we used to take a lot of kids and have really amazing special experiences with them, and to see it grow has been phenomenal, and all the things that you guys do. I have one question: is the newer, it's not so new maybe anymore, but that veterinary clinic that's there, is that managed by Metro? Is that a private partnership?
No, it's managed by Metro. The people that work there are zoo employees, Metro employees. Oh. And yeah, it's really a hospital now. It's not just a clinic. I mean, we greatly expanded that and can meet the needs of all the diverse, over 2,000 different animals that we have at the zoo. I appreciate your comments about bringing kids and education. We just recently opened a new education center for schools to bring school kids to. And if you've been to the zoo in the past and there's school buses lined up and masses of kids trying to get in through the front gate, we actually created a whole separate entrance just for school groups to go into and into the education center without having to go in through the main entrance. And it's really helped the traffic flow within the zoo very much.
are zoo concerts still happening? And if not, are they coming back?
Absolutely. Oh, they're still happening.
They still happen? Okay.
Yeah, check out our website. We pretty much have the concert calendar for this coming summer is pretty much put together now. One of the things people were concerned about was because the concert venue is right next to a portion of the elephant land sanctuary. There's 3 main portions, and the elephants could actually roam clear to the north side of the zoo and get away from it if they want. But what we've discovered is when the people start showing up and the music starts playing, the elephants all come down right next to it, and they're enjoying the show as well.
They dig the tunes. And one last question. What is, I think that it's important because we're a smaller city. Sometimes Portland feels like a town. What is unique about our zoo that's different that makes it very special?
Well, we are world famous for our zoo exhibit and for the conservation efforts around elephants. Before the Oregon Zoo had our elephant lands, very little was known about elephants' needs or their activities, how far they range when they're in the wild, whatever. We didn't even know, before Packy was born, human beings didn't even know what the gestation period for an elephant was. So, as I said, the zoo is world-renowned for our elephant program and for our conservation and for our education efforts as well. We're the only zoo in the country that actually has the State Fish and Wildlife Department actually has an office at our zoo, and we work together with them. We're also well known for our efforts around endangered species. We have a California condors exhibit, which if you know, California condors almost went extinct. There were like 12 left in the world, and they were all captured, all 12 of them, and then put into breeding program. And so now there's about 450, and now they're starting to be released back into the wild. And we actually have a breeding facility, not at the zoo. It's at another location that nobody knows about except the people who work there, where we breed and raise condors for them to be released into the wild. But we do have condors at the zoo on display as well. If you've not seen them, they're pretty impressive, 10-foot wingspan.
Thank you. I mean, I felt the reach of our zoo when I was in Atlanta, and I went to the big aquarium there, and they had an otter of ours on loan. So there was even a representation in Atlanta from our zoo. So it was pretty cool to see, and I really appreciate those efforts. Thanks for sharing.
All good information. I guess I wanted to touch on the solid waste and the plan on trying to do something with the organics as you're working on. As you well know, sir, the Wilsonville had a proposal to do a digester in conjunction with our waste hauler and a conversion of our truck fleet at the waste hauler into using gas produced by the processes off of that food waste, and we have not received an approval. They have not received an approval from Metro. We still think it is an exemplary project that helps move a waste stream into being a input stock for a necessary service that's happening, and so we would like to think there's still a chance that that might be a demonstration project that could move forward. I have personally not seen anything as prepared or ready to implement at that level throughout the rest of the region. But as you know, we have not arrived at that point yet.
I agree with you. I think that's an awesome project. I would love to see it move forward, and I have very little doubt that eventually it will happen. They made a great proposal. They've got a good business plan. They are up against, for a pilot project, on how do we deal with this. There's another applicant whose proposal does not require the same level as capital investment to get it up and running. So as a pilot project, we'll probably begin with that one, but I would like to think that eventually there'll be an opportunity for many different kinds of uses for the results of just separating out the food scraps and organics out of the waste stream.
Well, the whole idea of removing a truck headed eastbound on 84 every 20 minutes would be something that would be worth pursuing. There are.
By the way, we haven't been able to do recently because the gorge has been closed. So garbage has been piling up at our collection centers in anticipation of the weather getting better.
Oh, geez. All right. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it again. That will bring us then to, let's see, I don't think I have any other formal communications. That'll bring us to our citizens input and community announcements section, which is an opportunity for visitors to address council on things that are not on the agenda. Also a time to address things that are on the agenda but not set up for a formal public hearing. Staff and council will make every effort to respond to questions raised either before tonight's meeting is over or as soon as we can thereafter. We do ask people to limit their comments to 3 minutes, and we have a little green, yellow, red light to help monitor that. I do have a variety of speaker cards, and I wanted to try to be clear. Some of them address things that are set up for a public hearing later in the agenda, so we'll hold those. And I'll do my best if I understand what everybody else is wanting to comment on. If there's anyone that has not filled out a card but would like to speak, please do so. Cards at the side of the room there, and pass them forward to the city recorder. I'll ask Mr. Mike Morse to come forward to start with.
All right. Can we do?
I don't know who. I asked for Mr. Morse. What? Is there someone that you want with you?
Well, no, I'm Mike Morse with Polish Homes, and I was thinking of maybe the representative with the Home Builders Association would start this out, but that's okay.
I saw no such information, but if he wants to come forward also with you, there's more than one mic there. You can
I'll go ahead
tag
and
team
get
it.
started. He can go in his turn in your
Okay.
rotation. Thank you, councilors and mayor. My name is Mike Morse, Polish Homes. We're developing the Morgan Farm project, 78 lot project in the Frog Pond West subdivision. Currently, we're just finishing phase 1 of 36 lots. I'm here tonight to bring up the topic again of the City Council Resolution 2724 as it relates to the update to the water and sewer methodology and system development increase. I won't go back too far in history because really a lot has just transpired over the past week. I think we're all aware that we have an issue regarding the vesting of this resolution. And we're here, a couple of developers are here to just kind of share a personal story of what we've gone through just in the past 7 working days, really, to get to this point of thinking that we had been able to vest at least a portion of our projects. I don't think any of us are here to question the methodology or any of the other issues other than the fact that we thought that we had until Friday, 5 p.m. to make sure that we submitted what was deemed a completed application, building permit application, by Friday, which was March 1st. So when we were first aware that it was going to be adopted effective immediately on February 21st, my first phone call was to staff asking, hey, that date's right around the corner. What do we need to submit? We would like to get as many building permit applications as possible prior to that March 1st date. What is the minimum required to submit? And oh, by the way, is there any way that it could go beyond March 1st? Because that's certainly a short time frame for all of us to be able to react to the immediate effective date of whether it's February 21st or even March 1st. So on Wednesday of last week, we were given the minimum criteria that we needed to submit for applications. And at that time, staff told us, assume that Thursday, February 28th at 5 p.m., that your applications need to be in and complete. But we are having some internal discussions, and I'll call you Thursday morning, the 28th, and let you know if that deadline changes. So we went ahead and started working towards getting our applications put together. And then Thursday mid-morning, the 28th, staff called and said that we are good until Friday, 5 p.m., March 1st, 5 p.m., to make sure that we get our applications submitted. At that time, I had told staff that we probably could get it in by 5 o'clock on Thursday, the 28th, but given this good news of some additional time, we're just going to make sure that we cross our Ts and dot our Is, and we will take that additional day. So in closing, we ended up submitting all of our applications midday on Friday the 1st, because we were told at that time that the effective date would be 5 p.m. on Friday. So sorry for going overtime. Any questions for me?
Councilor West, question.
How does this really quick implementation of the new water SDCs affect your businesses and other builders' predictability for what businesses look for when planning forward and cost and things like that? How does that impact you in real life practically, this very quick implementation?
Thank you for asking that. I didn't think I would have the opportunity to share, bigger picture of what SDC implementation and especially short notice implementation, but absolutely, we underwrite projects. I mean, before we had our 80 lot, which is now 78 lot Morgan Farm project land use approved, we had already underwritten it, meaning we had accounted for all of our estimated site costs, soft costs, which would include city fees, SDCs, engineering fees, all the hard and soft costs. We underwrite this long before we are even at land use approval, and then just kind of recalibrate after we get land use approval, where we can start quantifying all of the conditions of approval. Our loans are based, our acquisition and development loans are based on numbers that we had figured long before. So when an SDC, a change in SDCs come up, certainly it has an immediate negative impact to what we had originally underwritten. And in this day and age, with the price of land and site costs the way that they are, deals are already thin. Projects are already thin in the first place. So the amount of increase, not only in our opinion, seemed extremely unfair in terms of just the percentage increase, but I think tonight's topic is the short leash that we had to react and to try to minimize that impact to us. Does that answer the question, Ben?
Yeah, and how does this affect your actual building going forward? Does it even impact your ability to do the projects, finish projects, anything like that impact you?
Well, I would love to say, yes, we have to stop and that land's going to stay there forever, but we're at the point of no return at this point. So we're going to have to continue to develop and build out. I think the reality is such that we're so far into it with land cost and commitments to site costs that we can't turn back. So, the impact that it has on affordable housing, I hope everybody understands that you're not impacting the developer so much. You're really not even impacting the home builder. It's the home buyer that's going to ultimately be paying for this, which comes to the affordability factor. Yes, it has an impact on our profitability, but ultimately it's the home buyer that's paying for it because it's just added on to the purchase price. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Adkins.
Good evening, Mayor Knapp and city councilors. My name is James Adkins. I'm here on behalf of the Home Builders Association of Metropolitan Portland to discuss the implementation date of the water system development charge, something I've already had the opportunity to come and speak to you about. And I would like to say, the previous times when I've come to testify, I really appreciate that the council did address all of the points that we made and walked through it. Even though we didn't see eye to eye on everything, you did take the time to address those points. And I think that's very important and speaks to the valuable partner that Wilsonville is to the residential building community. So in short, I would just say that Wilsonville is a strong partner. And if you ask many folks in the residential development community, that the caliber of staff at Wilsonville is always very high. And they work very hard to meet the needs of our members. So it came to my attention that there was some sort of a miscommunication about the implementation date of this SDC. Throughout the process, the staff reports have said that the target date was March 1st. However, there was some ambiguity in that, and so it didn't say 12:01 a.m. on March 1st or 5 p.m. March 1st. And so I did not even catch either that in the resolution that it said February 21st was going to be the implementation date. Otherwise, I would have certainly broached that in my testimony. So I guess the ask on our part is that you consider amending that resolution to allow for the effective date to actually be March. Well, at this point, I think if it's the beginning of the day, the following business day would be March 4th today, this morning, so that all of the stakeholders in Wilsonville who are doing business here would have had that opportunity for their permits to be applied for and for them to be vested at the original SDC rate.
Okay. Okay, Councilor West?
One quick question. If we were to come to that consensus that you meet your request, what date would be workable for builders that would be kind of fair, in your guys' opinion, to kind of meet your business needs while also getting this implemented as quick as possible, because we made a decision on that. So what do you guys, is it the 4th, or do you guys have a time frame that you think is fair?
Well, I would say that in my time with the Home Builders Association, I've gone through 2 different implementations of SDCs this far. A few years ago, you guys did the transportation SDC update, which was a slightly different process. I think there was more targeted engagement and informing of people doing business in Wilsonville to be sure that they were aware of the cost increases that were going to be approaching. So I would ask, if not Monday, today, March 4th, as being the implementation date, what would it take to maybe just be sure that everyone got the phone call? Everyone who's been applying for permits in the last year would be aware that this cost was going to come about. And if, so however much time that might take, if it's a couple days, a week, I don't know. Otherwise, I think the understanding is that just, 12:01 a.m. March 4th is fair as well.
Okay, thanks very much. Stan Earnshaw, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councilors. My name is Stan Earnshaw. I'm here representing the Community of Hope Lutheran Church. This is the Lutheran Church on the corner of Stafford Road and Beckman Road. We've been working with West Hills Development for the last year and a half on a creation of land parcels and swapping of those parcels, and concurrent with that, being annexed into the city. We've also been working with the city staff for that same length of time and have had a very positive experience working with the staff. I was informed last Friday that as part of that, we had planned on a certain SDC fee that we were going to pay to be connected to the city sewer and water, which we were very much looking forward to. I was informed last Friday that these fees were going to go up in the neighborhood of $30,000, money that we don't have as a church. We weren't notified that these were going up. We're not a developer. We're a nonprofit organization that's looking to make a better environment for both the West Hills Development and their project, as well as give us future expansion capability. And so it was a real win-win situation, plus we would be annexed into the city. We were surprised that we had no notice that the fees were going up to this degree. And our request is that you grandfather us in to the previous fees. The application working through West Hills, I believe, is in. We're not a developer. We're a nonprofit trying to do the right thing. Questions?
So you your project has been submitted to the city by West Hills, is that what I'm hearing?
In conjunction with West Hills, that is true.
All right, and so that has been done, do you know when it was done?
It's, well, it's, the annexation is part of the agenda for this evening, I believe. So we're in that same application process with West Hills.
Okay, I'm going to need some clarification from staff as to the construction of what's being said here.
Well, it's an annexation application, or?
What we submitted was for the water meter. Submitted on
Ah,
Friday.
okay, but isn't there
You're
also a
part of
hearing?
the
to-
annexation
Okay.
is the bigger.
So you can see, I'm not a developer. Can you tell that? I don't even play one on TV. What they've submitted on our behalf is an application for the water meter, but we are, as part of this project, we are creating a parcel of land on our land. They are creating a parcel. Then we're going to swap those parcels, okay? And as part of that process, then we're also going to apply to be annexed into the city.
Did you submit a permit application for an increased size for your water meter?
We're actually creating a water meter. We're on a well right now. We're in the county and on
If
a
you've
well.
already submitted, when did that application come in?
Friday.
Okay, so he would be tied into the Friday issue.
That's what I was trying to establish,
Sorry.
is where in the time sequence.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Friday.
You're not a developer.
Yeah, I'm not a developer.
Got that.
All
Or
right, sir.
or a home builder. I'm a homeowner, have been for 25 years here in Wilsonville.
Just to clarify,
Would you like to be recognized?
yes,
Counselor West.
thank you, sorry. Just to clarify, you're not developing anything new, you're just trying to tie into our system and just are hit with an onslaught of fees.
Exactly.
Is that concisely?
All we're trying to do is connect the city sewer and
Yeah.
water.
You're not building anything, you're a church in the community and you just want to hook in. Okay.
But you're on a
Correct.
well right now.
We're on a well.
Okay, so you are asking to be brought into the city in terms of having city water brought to your church.
We are.
Okay.
All right, so we'll factor that in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jonathan Lockwood, please. Good evening.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, members of the council and Mayor Knapp. I come today to talk about the Green New Deal that's going to be introduced here in our legislature. There are town halls across the state right now, but I come to you today as a millennial and as an environmentalist to register my disgust with House Bill 2020. I'm an Oregonian by choice. I love our state, and this bill will destroy the state I've come to know. The Green New Deal isn't new, it's not a deal, and it isn't green. It's a cash grab from workers and families to give handouts to crony capitalists and the politically well-connected. It also fails to address the pollution swirling in our air, charges indulgences to the government for the sin of consuming too much energy above an arbitrary cap, and it enriches wealthy green robber barons. Renew Oregon, one of the groups really put behind the push for this, is just one of many front groups here in the state that refuses to disclose their donors. And they refuse to reveal their surveys, and they've manipulated lawmakers, and worst of all, they've intimidated Oregonians. Their fear-mongering is almost like child abuse, and their doomsday scare is a cult tactic. Cap and trade puts profits before people and prioritizes political gain above policy outcomes. The carve-outs and the subsidy train should be thrown off the tracks. I think if not, it will be an albatross around the neck of everyone who chanted choo-choo and of every bystander who didn't act when they had the chance. So I'm coming tonight to urge the council to file and pass a resolution of disapproval and side with the families of Wilsonville, neighbors I've come to know and love, instead of Multnomah County's biggest polluters. Thanks.
Thank you. Dan Grimberg, please.
Good evening, Mayor Knapp and councilors. Dan Grimberg, West Hills Land Development. To be clear, we're asking that the council make the water SDC resolution effective March 4th. as Polish has said, we were advised that if we had our applications in by end of business on Friday, that would vest our permits. That's what we were counting on. We can go into what happened in the process of the SDC being discussed. We weren't part of that discussion, which hindsight is not how we've typically operated with Wilsonville. We've been a longtime builder in Wilsonville. City staff knows us well. We're doing the first development project in Frog Pond. We build in Villebois, we build on Beckman, we build on Wilsonville Road. Large, good housing project, good housing stock for the city of Wilsonville. We have a great relationship with the staff. They're the best in the area. They've been very helpful in advancing our project in Frog Pond. I'm not sure how this happened, and I'm not being critical. It's very unusual. We have great communication. We're all sitting around last week saying, how did we get here? We didn't have a lot of time to figure it out because it didn't matter. What mattered is what can we do at this point? And so city staff was very helpful. They talked to all the people, whoever needs to be involved in that, and came up with the solution that if we had our applications submitted by the end of Friday, March 1st, that we would be vested. And that's what we did. If we had known it was something different, we would have responded in the same manner and dropped everything we were doing because has a big impact on our development. And so we're asking that it be adopted as of today, March 4th.
So when you say as of March 4th, are you saying 12:01 a.m. March 4, our normal?
I guess so. What I can tell you is we submitted our applications and the church's application on Friday between noon and 3.
Okay.
So our applications are in as of the 1st. If it's effective on the 4th, we would be covered.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Robinson, I think you want to speak when we get to annexation. Is that correct?
I'm the applicant's representative.
All right, great. Is there anybody else that would like to speak at this point on things not for public hearing or not on the agenda? Mr. Cosgrove, I'm not seeing any, so let me know if there is. Can you clarify for us a couple things? I guess one of the things I also would like to ask is the city attorney to give us the legal department's perspective on notice, just so we have that to consider.
So from the legal perspective, all appropriate and required notice under the statute was given. The resolution date proposed by city staff, which was adopted by the council, was to be effective, the new rates were to be effective March 1, and there was no 5 p.m. timeframe. So when the effective date is stated to be March 1, that means on March 1, the rates changed. That being said, if there was communication somewhere between some of the home builders who were trying to submit applications on Thursday and they were told they could submit on Friday, then I think that goes to your discretion. But in terms of what was legally required, all notices were given, and the date that was supposed to be, or the date that was the effective date, was March 1. So any applications that came in March 1 would have been at the new rate.
Yeah, and so that's
but for that communication, perhaps.
So that's when you say March 1, it's 12:01 a.m. on March 1, is how that
Yes,
works normally?
That's how it works. If it just says effective date, if you want it to be later on a date, then you say.
Have to specify.
The rates go through this time.
Okay.
But if it doesn't, if it only specifies a date, then it's 12:01 that day.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cosgrove, can you help us maybe
I'll try.
sort of make these different requests and ideas coalesce around some sort of a proposal? Or?
So I think you got the legal side covered, right? I think we're fine legally. And then there's a question of, equity and fairness. In terms of what I've heard tonight from the request, I don't hear anything that's unreasonable. I think there's always going to be I think the overriding issue here isn't that the SDCs went up. I think it's that the SDCs went up by a lot. And I'm not speaking for the home builders, but I think a 5 to 10% increase in SDCs might have had some conversation, but it wouldn't have probably affected the bottom line as much as some of these increases that we're talking about with the water. So I think from an equity standpoint, fairness standpoint, if you wanted to do the March 4th, staff could certainly support that. I think there was some miscommunication, and I think, because I was out Friday, I was on the phone, I was hearing from people. So there may have been some indications that were given, and some of that might have had to do with your own city manager here, because we're all trying to do the right thing. I think the folks at the front counter, they bear the brunt of this stuff, and so they would like, direction. So I think making it March 4th would be fine from a staff perspective. And I don't know if Dan and Chris have anything they want to add, but they could come up. There may be some other one-offs that you'd want to consider as well. I mean, if you understand.
So that would be one of the questions is, if staff has an idea, how many applications would be affected? I mean, effectively, how many came in after February 28th?
So I met this morning with Mr. Namsu. I had a whole list of probably 15 questions I asked him to follow up on, so we'll see how much time he had to answer those questions. But I think I will let Chris answer the questions that I asked, and then if you have any additional questions, you can ask those too.
Great. Mr. Namsu.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Knapp. Chris Namsu, Community Development Department. So pre-March 1st, we had 31 applications come across the counter. So those were submitted by Polygon Homes, and we had 2 specific requests for water meters also come in. So that's a total of 33 requests for vesting, and those all made it in prior to the effective date. On the day, and I'm responsible for doing what I believed was the right thing to do, so I want to be clear, and we read the staff report. We had staff that was out. We were having difficulties calibrating our computer program to get the new fee in place, and we were getting an awful lot of angry calls. It was a difficult couple of days that we were struggling to work through this, and we did what we believed the council would want us to do, which was try to work together with our development community to try to do the right thing. So if there's anybody to blame on this one, I'm going to take that one right off the bat and just be clear that we thought it was the appropriate and responsible thing to do, given where a lot of these development partners were and the calls that we were getting. And Dan was getting a significant amount of those. His staff was getting them, and I was getting them as well, direct calls from people who were in the ground doing projects in the community. So after that, on the March 1st date, we saw 69 permits come across the counter. And we saw 2 additional requests for water meters. And one of those was for the church that you heard from just now. And the other one was another one-off, I would call it, which was a specific request from an individual who is on a well on Rose Lane, and they were looking to someday make that connection to city water. So this call came in on Friday, and they were actually able to make the minimum submittal on Friday and get an application in the door that would transfer that home from a well condition to the city water. So I ran the numbers on these scenarios, and it appears that there would be $283,000 worth of deferred SDCs that would not be captured if Friday were included. And so that is 69 plus the 2 at the various rates for the meters. So that's $283,000. That was the difference in that one day, essentially. The stuff that came in before totaled, the stuff that made it in legitimately came in at $118,000. So we're talking about $402,000 that came in over the course of 3 days in an attempt to try to beat the increase in the rate. And I think I hit all 16 of your questions.
Thank you. I think you did.
So we have not had people here testifying about ones that were not on the cusp of getting things in last week. And so I'm curious about, is there another backlog of people that were earlier in the process and still have not gotten them in, or maybe got requests in or ready to come in this week or next week? I mean, what is the complexion of our prospects of these developers, moving forward this week and next week?
So looking in the crystal ball, we are aware of approximately 22 additional permits that could come in over the next several weeks. And those would be 17 Villebois homes that are in Mont Blanc for Polygon Homes, as well as 5 homes in Aspen Meadows. Staff spent a significant time reaching out and calling small subdivision builders throughout the community, and most of those folks were able to make something happen. They were either in the queue or they got a couple of applications in the door in a timely manner. So if, for example, the council was interested in going beyond the 4th, we imagine that there'd be about 22 additional permits that could come across our counter. We could definitely shake the bushes to find others, but we're not aware of many beyond those 22 additional.
So what would be the timing on those 22?
Dan, do you have a sense of that?
Excuse me. Mayor,
This is Dan, yes.
Building official for the city.
Yes, sir.
My sense of that is sometime before the summer season starts, which is typically June 1st-ish. We usually start to see a pretty strong push in the spring for development permits so that they can take advantage of the nice summer weather.
So it doesn't sound like those are imminent. They're kind of a little farther out there.
What we really did is we took a look at the number of available lots that are platted and ready to go, have been through the planning processes, have been completely approved through planning. And we looked at, well, how many have been submitted already and how many are remaining to be submitted. And that's where we came up with this 22 number.
I'm just trying to get a sense of these. It sounds like those are a little tenuous or uncertain. It's not like they're ready to come in next week.
I think that's a fair characteristic.
Okay, all right. We talked when we did the SDC consideration for water about frustration many of us shared that we had gotten so far kind of behind the 8 ball, and that if we had been better at being on top of this would have been updated some years ago, and consequently the need for the large increase was the fact that the number of capital projects that have to be done as we look forward to build out has grown in terms of the list of projects and the costs that we're having to cover. And so nobody wants to raise SDCs on that kind of a scale. And I agonize over the difficulty that causes for people that have been making plans and economic projections and getting their loans lined up. At the same time, we have to build out our systems in order to enable all those building projects to go forward, because we have to provide water services for all those impending and forecasted developments. So it's that balance that is always difficult. If it's any small consolation, developers that have been building along, partnering with Wilsonville in the last years have benefited a little bit from somewhat lower SDCs than might have otherwise been the case if we'd done this analysis some years ago. Doesn't make it easier to swallow now. Are there any other perspectives that you think council should consider? Mr. Namsu, Mr. Cosgrove, Ms. Jacobson?
I think you have the gist of it, Mayor.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Carlson, Mr. Namsu, Mr. Cosgrove, Ms. Jacobson. It's kind of up to council at this point. Staff has advised us they believe the legal requirements were met. It's clear that some of our development community were surprised and were somewhat taken aback. You've heard testimony by the private sector that's here that if we were to change the implementation date to March 4, that would cover most of the currently pending applications and enable them to proceed on the basis of what their cost projections had been. Staff has indicated that that would have a dollar cost of somewhere around $283,000. Reduction from people paying the old rates, instead of the new rates. The applications that came in prior to March 1 would automatically receive, of course, the old rates anyway. So the question is there a equity or practical kind of a consideration that this council feels would be appropriate to adjust the implementation timing of the SDC dollar amounts that we already approved? If there is, that would require some kind of a motion, and our Roberts protocol would suggest that a motion should be made before we had a debate or discussion about that particular. So at this point, I would ask the council if there is a motion to let us have that, and we will see where we go here. Councilor West.
I'd like to make the motion to discuss the SDC, to change the SDC, to change the resolution and the date that it's implemented.
To what? Maybe March 4th.
I want to be more generous than March 4th. I also don't want to throw an arbitrary number out there, but I'll say March 15th.
Okay. Is there a second?
I guess I'll second for the sake of discussion, because that'll bring us forward, I think, in the process.
All right, so there's motion to second to revise the implementation date to March 15. Would you like to give your rationale for that proposal, Mr. West?
Yeah, I think that we as a city look to take care of each other, and we love our business partners, our developers, and our communities of faith. And I think that we have a history, as you've already mentioned, Mayor, that we could have done a much better job of not bringing a 60% SDC increase all at once, and I share that exact same sentiment. And I think that it's a small cost to make sure that we are taking care of these people, that we're slowing down, that we're not missing anybody. I think it's hard in a council meeting to be like, do we have 22 here and maybe 33 there, and are we splitting hairs? I think we need to slow down with such an astronomical increase on SDCs, which we've all pretty much agreed that is necessary, to make sure we're leaving some room for, one, them to be some economic planning down the line for businesses, for them to kind of adjust to this, that clear communication, and allowing maybe those few to have that fair moment to come in and to take advantage of the lower rates. I think that's the kind of city we are. We take care of each other. We're fair. I think it's fair. I think even putting on the 4th is just like, it was the request, but I think that we might want to have a little wiggle room beyond that, because I wasn't certain that we totally had the numbers down pat on potentially like kind of revisiting this situation maybe again. So I'm just looking to be fair and just a little bit more generous. If somebody wants to make an amendment or change that, I'm open to that. I'm open to this totally, but I do think that we should do something.
Thank you. Other perspectives? Councilor Agrawal?
I guess I would say that I agreed that nobody wanted or wants to raise the SDCs in a dramatic way. But the reality is that we need to, the money's going to come from somewhere for these projects. And the more that it's delayed, we're asking the ratepayers, the taxpayers that live in Wilsonville, to subsidize that money. And that's something that I don't feel good about. They're already going to be subsidizing to some degree. We're all going to be contributing to these projects, right? So, I mean, it's the philosophy behind SDCs and how are you going to run your SDCs. So I don't think anybody here, believes that the city or the council's in a game of gotcha. And if something was communicated to to a person that this was the due date and they earnestly thought that they were in alignment with the due date, I don't have interest in playing a gotcha there. So I would feel, it's unfortunate for everyone that we're in this situation, but I would feel like if a message was given that it was end of day on March 1st, then that's something that I would feel good about honoring, the end of the business day on March 1st, because I don't want to play that game. But prolonging it out further, I believe that's a discussion that we should have had when we passed the original resolution. So I guess, point of discussion, I would say perhaps I would be interested in amending the motion to look at end of business day March 1st, if that was the communication that was given. Now, the 12:01 March 1st versus end of business day, I don't know that really matters. I don't know if things came in on Sunday. I don't know if that's business practice to submit your application on Sunday. So perhaps end of day March 1st is the same as saying 12:01 March 4th, but that's where I would line up.
I would rely on your city attorney. I think she
There we go.
understands what you're trying to do.
Thank you.
The nature of the motion without this, so agreed.
Yeah, to make a modification, part of what I was trying to get clear on from planning department, the building department, is how many additional applications do we think are in the wings? And, I heard 22 over several months. That sounds like there's likely not very much in the wings immediately.
So I know that Chris and Dan did some outreach to folks that we do business with, and I think what you're hearing is that the outside potential is that maybe there's going to be 22, and based on past practice, those tend to come in, because people want to get shovels in the ground between now and the end of June. To me, that part is too speculative. I wouldn't recommend that you do that. But I think the March 4th date is reasonable again.
Well, what I was trying to get at, if the 22 is by June, then how many are by March 15th? I mean, another 2 or 3 or 5 maybe?
Doesn't
I mean,
sound
it's
like, from
very
what I'm hearing,
speculative. It's not.
It could be between 0 and 100. I mean, it's speculative at this point.
Yeah.
That's correct. We really have no true way to know that without contacting individual builders, which we certainly could do. But I don't have an accurate answer for you on that. Those are just based on the easy research that we were able to do in the short amount of time that we had to try to put this together.
Can I also I just want to correct one thing, because I know that there's been discussion about not increasing the SDC. So there was a period of 3 or 4 years there where it was an administrative decision before my time to not do that because the economy was horrible and everybody was looking to get development and builders to be interested. So that accounted for some of it. But I just want to be clear that what's driving this SDC increase isn't not increasing by little incremental amounts. It's the huge projects that we have coming up. So I want everybody in the room to understand that we're trying to expand our water treatment plant, build a $3 million reservoir or whatever the size of that tank is, and put in some pretty good sized pipes. That's what's driving the increase. It's not the not increasing by the consumer price index or the construction engineering cost index. I just want to be clear that when we're communicating that this isn't because we fell down and somehow didn't increase by small incremental. What's increasing that SDC is some pretty significant capital improvement projects. Having said that, the dollar figures that were being quoted tonight by our staff, I mean, that's pretty small in terms of the overall scope.
Well, that is, and even if the motion that's on the floor is to go to the 15th, and I'm really trying to say, well, is there really that much difference between March 4th and March 15th? It doesn't sound like
So
there's
the
a...
answer is we don't know. And if you want to choose the 15th, we'll make it work. And it would allow maybe a little more opportunity for Mr. Carlson to do outreach if that's something that you'd like us to do.
Well, I just don't, I mean, legal notice is one thing, you know, reaching people that have been collaborating with Wilsonville over time and helping build our community. I mean, when I go to talk to groups, you know, one of the things I brag about, if you wish, is that over the last decade, where there's been $800 million in private sector investment in the community of Wilsonville. And, you know, that has benefited our community in a lot of ways, you know, jobs and incomes and, you know, all those different pieces. So we want to continue that kind of relationship. I don't know how to judge. I'm thinking, well, if you split the difference and you said this Friday instead of a week from Friday, how many more people are going to scurry around between today and Friday to get anything in this week? It's pretty hard, time short. I don't know.
We don't have a good answer for you.
We just don't know.
No, I'm sorry.
But I agree that the 283 impact on 69, 70, 71 requests is not an astronomical figure for us to try to juggle. And it might well be that another week or two, you'd get a few more in, and I don't, you don't know. That's right, we don't know.
Don't know.
So the question is the council more inclined toward cutting it off with what we do know, or leaving a little more time for someone that we haven't heard from yet, you know, if they were to be in communication? Really, that's kind of the crux to me of the question of cut it off where we already know what's come in, or give a little window for people that are just now hearing about this to have time to do something. So
I will say that the March 15th date is a Friday.
is a Friday.
So there's some logic to that.
Yeah.
I mean, but
So
so is a Monday.
There would be logic to that if we said 5 p.m. on Friday, to me, not if we said at 12:01 in the morning on Friday morning.
I think we can phrase it however you wish, because we have a good city attorney, so she'll make sure the language is right.
So if you wish to go with Ms. Counselor Ackervall's, I think where you were leaning, you could easily say that you would like to amend the resolution to leave the old rates in effect until 5 p.m. on Friday, March 1st, the new rates to become effective immediately thereafter.
That would account for any Sunday submittals as well, but we're not open on Sunday, so
So you
Okay.
can change the
If
effective.
you-
it would be Monday.
You can clarify the effective date to be 5 p.m. on Friday, March 1.
And the question then is whether we want to, again, cut it off now that we know what came in before the end of business on Friday, or whether you wish as a council to provide any
So
other...
not to add to it, Mayor, but the certainty of March 4th is you know what you're,
Right, that's
you know what you're out
Right,
in
we
terms of
know.
having to make up for that. And it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot. It's fair to the people that have been vested. All you're doing by making it March 15th is adding more exposure to somebody's going to have to make up that cost.
Councilor West.
I think that I mean, giving a little bit time and being gracious is something that I think we're known for here. And I don't think it's even to that Friday the 15th is not most likely that much more of an expense. What's probably more of an expense is the impact on affordable housing, which is a real crisis in our community. And so I think that giving just a little bit here and implementing such a large increase is reasonable. Totally open to also an amendment, what to the first or the fourth. I'm open to that too, to just doing the right thing. But I would just like to see a little bit more window. Maybe is there I don't know how, I'm not a permitting expert, right? So is there still some documents, a few people are just waiting to get in that last document to be able to get in, and they're kind of like halfway there? Are we just giving a little bit more room?
That would have been communicated tonight, I would hope.
So everybody has, for the 4th is in. that we know of.
That's my knowledge.
And with it, I know we covered every legal basis, but it doesn't mean that it was right. I hope that we can also look at in the future how we communicate with our builders and partners that we have great relationships with, because nobody likes that surprise. We don't like it, they don't like it, so it's not a win-win. And I know we can probably do better, and we're always looking to do better. So I guess that's kind of where I sit with it, but I'm open to changing that. I just would like a little bit more window, just out of good faith.
Councilor Ackervall.
I guess, I don't know. I mean, I feel, looking at the numbers that were supplied, it's an impressive hustle, what happened on March 1st, right? I mean, if we look at the ratios, that, hats off to you for that, right? Because there was a lot of work. So I guess one side is I'm thinking there was considerable effort that was put in to get that many applications in on March 1st. And then if we just keep dribbling along, you know, I mean, they were trying to abide by what the word that they believed, you know, we had given them. And so I think there's something to honoring that our word means something too, you know, like when we say it's March 1st, or, you know, if that is what was expressed, and then great effort, I'm assuming, was probably made to make those applications come in on March 1st, then that's, you know, it makes sense to me. It makes sense that we come to an agreement that, well, okay, it's March 1st, instead of, you know, keep pushing it out. Maybe they wouldn't have had to work so many overtime hours on, you know, Thursday night trying to get it all in. I don't know. I mean, there's many storylines in this, and we can't know them all. And we can't, you know, try to make a scenario to help kind of, I don't know, shelter the way through. But I think what we can do is follow through. If what was said was March 1st, we should follow through on that. That's what I feel like. But I don't.
So would you like to make a motion to amend the motion?
I'll make a motion to amend, to have it be,
What she said.
help me here, on
5 p.m. on
5
Friday,
p.m.
March.
Friday, March 1st is the new time metric sent for that.
The new rates take effect after 5 p.m.
Yes.
March 1st.
Newer rates take effect
That would
after 5
cover
p.m. March 1st.
Everybody that you have heard from tonight.
Everybody that was represented and came and spoke tonight, yeah.
And we don't know what we don't know in terms of who else might be out there. But we did do some outreach, and we think it could be 22 between now and June, but we don't know.
So Councilor West, if that was made as a friendly motion, would you be accepting of it as a friendly motion, or do you want to vote on it?
I'll second it. Is that what I do? Did I say the right thing?
You have to accept her.
I have to accept
If
it.
she makes it as a
it's
friendly
yours.
amendment, you could say, as the maker of the motion, you would accept that as a
As a
friendly.
maker of the motion, I accept the friendly amendment. Did I do it right?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. That being the case, it would seem like most of the discussion has occurred. Is there anyone that would like to speak any further before we vote on that motion?
I think you need a second on the new motion.
Second on the new motion, correct.
So Councilor West could now second.
It's
I
the
second it.
existing one. We have
So I
the
will
existing
second it?
motion modified, so the maker and the second of the,
So complicated.
I think by
Only have
Robert's
3 people.
rules that simply accepting the friendly amendment is not a second, so he has to technically second her motion.
then we have to vote on it as and it's not a friendly amendment, then it's
No,
a
it's
formal
still-
amendment.
It's still friendly. You're still.
I'm feeling
offering-
friendly.
We're all friends. We're all friends here.
All of you.
So are you indicating you want 2 votes then? You want to vote on the amendment before the vote on the motion?
No, I think there was a second for the purpose of discussion, and part of the discussion was to do a friendly amendment, which was agreed to. And so now there's the friendly amendment out there, so then there's a second to that, and then you just vote on that one.
So I will second it.
Yes.
And now you can vote on the.
So then we don't have 2 votes to take. We have one vote to take on the motion as amended,
Yes.
That would make the
which would make the
effective
timing
date of the new SDC rates 5:01 PM. on
5:01
March
PM
1st.
on
March 1st.
March 1st. Understand? Okay, are we ready to vote?
I am ready.
I will call for the vote on the motion as amended then. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes 3-0. Thank you, staff, very much for your work on this. Thank you for the public input. Let's see, where does that put us now? I guess we're at mayor's business.
Oh, wow.
Let's see, meetings have been busy. We hosted here in Wilsonville a meeting with Congressman Kurt Schrader, who was convening the Oregon Congressional Delegation meeting on the Willamette River water. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Fisheries Divisions were here with regional and state officials. The topics were focused on the Willamette River endangered salmon recovery efforts, along with issues related to stored water in the Willamette reservoirs that have to accommodate fish habitat, flood control, power generation, municipal construction, and agricultural irrigation. We had the second largest crowd we've ever had at Wilsonville City Hall after the Aurora Airport hearing. So it was quite an energetic discussion. I also had the pleasure of attending the Westland Wilsonville School District Bond Summit meeting, which was talking about potential projects to put in front of voters for November 2019. I think, Councilor Akkerval, you were there, and I don't think that you made that, Councilor West. Essentially, the proposal is for a new Frog Pond area primary school, for a 600-seat performing arts center and renovation at the Wilsonville High School, and to relocate and expand the arts and technology school that's here in Wilsonville to the current Athey Creek Middle School, and to build a new middle school on the existing Dollar Street school district property in West Lynn. So a whole bunch of proposals, something over $200 million worth of projects. And that sounds like the direction they're heading for a bond coming up here this November. I attended the Metropolitan Mayors Consortium Lobby Day at the State Capitol, a long day of talking to leadership and all the different committee chairs and whatnot on different issues. One of the major topics that the mayors are querying and pushing action on is mental health considerations and policies, as well as funding for mental health initiatives, and we'll see how that fares in the state here this session. As Metro Councilor Dirksen mentioned, I've been asked and agreed to serve on the Metro Transportation 2020 bond measure task force that will be looking at the different options on that. There is a good solid mix of elected officials along with business interests and communities, groups and nonprofits on that group. It's 35-member task force, which is larger than some, so we'll have to see how it can go forward and find a consensus. No real substantive discussion. It's all been about how it's going to operate and how we'll go forward. But they've got us meeting for twice a month up through summer, and then maybe drop back to once a month until next year, and then they want us back twice a month after that, so we'll see. Enjoyed the Clackamas Cities Association dinner meeting that the cities rotate hosting of every month. Happy Valley hosted, and had a good discussion about all of their properties that they're getting annexation requests from since the demise of Damascus, and they have got some real challenges to how to service all of those new thousands of acres with infrastructure. Will be interesting to see. I don't see how, given what it costs us to serve new areas. They're looking at major things. Attended the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee meeting, the Washington County Coordinating Committee meeting. Upcoming, we're going to have Metro President Lynn Peterson at the Clackamas County Business Alliance meeting, which should be an interesting chance for business people in Clackamas County to talk with her. I think I will mention that we're going to have a town center showcase on the vision for town center and budget committee meetings coming up, but I will leave that maybe for details to the councilors if you want to talk about that when you do your reports. I do have something I would like to do with council at this point, and that is to make a recommendation for an appointment to our tourism task force. We have a lady named Elizabeth Price, who is quite experienced in a variety of different tourism events. She is currently employed as Director of Sales and Marketing for our local Holiday Inn. And I met with her and had a good conversation about how Wilsonville's past, present, and future fits into the concept of tourism. I think she would be a great addition to that body that's trying to work with tourism concepts for our city and is working through some plans that have been developed. So it's my recommendation to this council, if it please you, that we make an appointment of Elizabeth Price to that position. And I don't have the dates on what that term is in front of me.
You have them, Mark?
I have them.
Do you, okay.
3/4/19 to 6/30/21.
If it please the council, would you like to make a motion?
I move to ratify the appointment of Elizabeth Price to the Tourism Promotion Committee, Position 7, for the term beginning March 4th, 2019 to June 30th, 2021.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any question or discussion on that? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. Thank you very much. Let's see, upcoming meetings. The only one I would mention would be the next council meeting, but I don't have my calendar up on my machine. That's decided to go to sleep here. March 18th is council meeting. I should also mention that we have budget committee meeting upcoming. So with that, I will turn it over to the councilors, I guess. Councilor President Akkerball.
You mentioned the Town Center Plan, I believe, event, and that is happening next Wednesday here from 5 to 6 p.m. And I just walked past some of the images that are here in the hallway, and it was kind of like a walk down memory lane. It was, that's a project that so many people have been involved in over the last 2 years. There's been a tremendous amount of effort from staff that I feel have carried that project through so expertly. But also, it's been a really cool project to see how many community members have volunteered and been involved on the task force and in attendance to the multiple feedback events that we've done over the time of the project. And so I also want to say thank you to all the community members that have shared their input. I'm very excited about the work that's gone into this plan and is being done, and it's because I think of the large collective effort of so many people bringing ideas and really making it a very vibrant, exciting plan. So I hope that people can attend, and even if you can't be there March 13th, just take a moment and enjoy some of the images from that planning process. It's been a special thing to be part of. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilor West.
Councilor Akkerval, your excitement on that topic is infectious, and I have, since becoming part of the council, have seen you just beam with it over it, and I think it's fantastic. And I plan to be there, and so I look forward to seeing all the work that the community has done. I want to take a quick second with my time to acknowledge the passing of a dear family friend. We lost a statesman last week in Dennis Richardson. And I know we're a local government, we're not statewide, and he held executive office, but, you know, the flags were put at half-staff because we lost one of our own. And I just want to acknowledge that. It's funny, when we were doing the Pledge of Allegiance today, Dennis would always, and I always thought it was cliche, even though these are important words and we hear them since we're kids in grade school, but he'd always sprinkle in there liberty and justice for all. Like in his speeches, it was like his red meat Americana statement that he would make a lot of the time. And I just thought about that today as I was getting ready for council, and I was like, liberty and justice. Liberty symbolizes freedom and is really unique not only to America in many ways, but Western civilization, but justice is important too. And justice is fairness, and brings a piece of unity, equality, and looking out for each other and being fair. And as I know in Dennis, he embodied those things. He embodied that, and he also embodied what it meant to love your neighbor. And we didn't always agree, and that's well known, but we lost a true statesman, and I'll miss him. I think all of Oregon will miss him, and by extension, Wilsonville. So I just want to take a moment to honor his memory as Secretary of State of Oregon.
Thank you very much. All right. Why don't we jump then to the consent agenda, if we could, please.
Consent agenda, resolution number 2726, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville authorizing the mayor to execute a new urban renewal planning area agreement with Washington County to acknowledge City of Wilsonville Planning Authority in the Basalt Creek planning area.
Thank you. Is there a motion on consent?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded that we approve consent agenda as has been read. One item. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, passes 3-0, bringing us to our first public hearing. Now, we've got two related things here. Can we do this all in one public hearing?
We can do it all in one hearing, and you just want to
Separate
vote
votes,
separate. So
yeah.
Yeah, but I can, if you want me to read them both now
Please.
and then open both.
Yep.
Ordinance number 832, and this is first reading. An ordinance of the City of Wilsonville annexing approximately 24 acres of property located on the west side of Stafford Road, just north of Beckman Road, into the city limits of the City of Wilsonville, Oregon. The land is more particularly described as tax lots 1800, 1902, 1903, 2000, and 2200, and a portion of Stafford Road right-of-way, Section 12D, Township 3 South, Range 1 West, Willamette Meridian, Clackamas County, Oregon. Kathleen E. Ludwig, Clifton Morator, Brenda L. Mellum, Lynette E. Eaton, Theodore W. Eaton, Robert Kessler, Bonnie Kessler, and Diane Hillier petitioners. Ordinance number 833, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Wilsonville approving a zone map amendment from the Clackamas County Rural Residential Farm Forest 5 zone to the residential neighborhood zone on approximately 15 acres and to the public facility zone on approximately 7 acres on the north side of Beckman Road, just east of Beckman Creek. The land is more particularly described as tax lots 1800, 1902, 1903, 2000, and 2200, Section 12D, Township 3 South, Range 1 West, Willamette Meridian, Clackamas County, Oregon, West Hills Development, LLC applicant.
Thank you. So this is a formal land use hearing under Oregon law, and we have a whole protocol I need to read. So we'll call to order the public hearing on ordinance number 832 and 833. First of all, do any members of council wish to abstain, declare a conflict of interest, or report any ex parte contact or any information gained outside of the hearing?
No.
No.
No. Have all members familiarized themselves with the application?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge participation of any member of council? Seeing no challenge. For all those wishing to testify, please be aware that failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford this council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the city council to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the criteria that staff will describe or other criteria in the plan or land use regulation which you believe apply to the decision. At this time, I will call for staff to present the proposal and list the applicable substantive approval criteria, following which we will ask for any comments by city attorney. Then we will ask the applicant to make their presentation. Then we will ask members of the audience who wish to speak to take their turn. And we, if there is need, will offer rebuttal to the applicant. Why don't we move to the staff report? Ms. Reibel.
Thank you, Mayor Knapp and councilors. My name is Kimberly Reibold, Associate Planner with the city. As required by statute, I would announce that the criteria applicable to these applications are stated on page 2 of attachment 3 to Ordinance 832 and page 2 of attachment 2 to Ordinance 833, which has been entered into the record. Copies of the report are available on the counter at the side of the room. So this request is for an annexation and zone map amendment to support the Frog Pond Meadows subdivision, which is the third subdivision that the city has reviewed in the Frog Pond West planning area. This follows the Stafford Meadows application, which was approved last year to the south of the subject area, which is highlighted in red, as well as the Morgan Farm application, which is in the southwestern portion of the Frog Pond area. So the total area of the site proposed for annexation is 24 acres, and that includes some adjacent right-of-way along Stafford Road. The proposal for the 74-lot subdivision is in line with the master plan that the City Council previously approved, which went through a robust public process, and that subdistrict map with land uses is shown on the screen here. And tonight, the City Council is reviewing the annexation and zone map amendment actions associated with these requests. The first request is for the annexation, which is shown here on the dark black outline on this map. This is approximately 24 acres proposed for annexation and is contiguous to land currently in the city. It is within the urban growth boundary and is master planned for residential development, along with a future park and civic uses. The proposed annexation includes the Community of Hope Church property, which is in the southeastern portion of the area, as well as property owned by the Westland-Wilsonville School District along the western portion of the subject property. The existing church is proposed to remain, with the westernmost portion of that site included within the subdivision. The easternmost portion of the Westland-Wilsonville School District property is also proposed to be included as a part of Frog Pond Meadows, with the remaining area planned as a future park. All property owners in the area and a majority of electors within this area have consented in writing to the annexation request. And as a result, council is able to move forward with annexing the 5 properties and the adjacent right-of-way on Stafford Road. Concurrent with the adoption of the Frog Pond West Master Plan, the city added a new zoning district, which is residential neighborhood, that is intended to be applied to residential properties in the master plan area. This application proposes changing from the Clackamas County district, shown on the left side, to a combination of the residential neighborhood zone for the portions of the property that will be a part of the Frog Pond Meadows subdivision, with the public facility zone applied to the balance of the school site, which is planned for a future park, as well as the remaining church site that is going to continue in that use. So the application of these 2 districts is consistent with the recommendations of the Frog Pond Master Plan. This list here shows the additional applications that were approved by the DRB that are contingent upon the council approval of the annexation and zone map amendment request. At the DRB public hearing last month, we did not receive any additional public testimony beyond the testimony provided by the applicant. And these applications were approved unanimously by the DRB. The proposal before us meets what was envisioned during the master plan process and requires 2 waivers that are necessary to facilitate the preservation of a 34-inch Oregon white oak in the right-of-way for the future Willow Creek Drive along the western portion of the property. As I mentioned, it's a 74-lot subdivision that is a combination of small lot and medium lot sizes. With a street layout that is generally consistent with the street demonstration plan that was a part of the Frog Pond West Master Plan. We also, during site design review, took a look at the landscaping wall that will be proposed to match what is currently planned for along Beckman Road. So the Stafford Road wall will coordinate with that. And we also looked at 2 active open spaces within the small lot subdistrict areas. One is a tot lot area adjacent to another grove of Oregon white oak trees that will be preserved, along with an additional picnic area. Other aspects of the subdivision proposal are in line with the master plan recommendations, including street trees, choosing trees from the list in the master plan, and as well other recommended efforts like tree preservation. So there is some removal of trees on the site, most of which are an overgrown grove of generally Doug fir that were originally, I think, overgrown from a tree farm that previously existed to the south. So our efforts have really focused on preservation of the high-quality Oregon white oak trees that are remaining on the site. So with that, based on the information, staff recommends approval of the annexation and zone map amendment requests, and I'm available to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions for staff on this proposal? I'd like to understand what the 2 waivers are.
Sure. The first, and let's see, I can actually pull up a copy of the plat here. So it generally affects the lots that are up in this portion of the site. You can kind of see this meander in the road. The 34-inch Oregon white oak tree is located here, and based on information provided from the arborist, it requires a root preservation zone of a radius of 22 feet. And so because of this, the street was designed to have quite a wide median to accommodate preservation of this tree in front of the lots. So these 4 lots up here, the 2 in the middle will require a waiver to minimum lot size, since the street kind of takes a little bit of the frontage here to preserve the tree. And then additionally, they've requested a front setback waiver for these 4 lots here. Again, these are the 4 lots that are affected by the modification and right-of-way for tree preservation.
So the front setback waiver would produce a building closer to the road than otherwise? Or?
Yes, that's correct. But generally speaking, I know it's kind of faint on here. You can see where those setback lines lie. You would be generally having a fairly consistent elevation frontage along the street. The one thing that changes is that the street does get a little closer to those homes. But I think they're still going to set back a little bit further than the remaining homes to the south would, just because of how the street curves.
Okay. Anything else? If not, any comments from City Attorney pertaining?
I have no comments.
Thank you. We would ask then that the representative of the applicant to come forward and give us their perspective on things here. Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, Mayor Knapp, members of council. My name is Michael Robinson. I'm a land use attorney with the firm of Schwabe, Williamson, and Wyatt. My mailing address is 1211 Southwest 5th Avenue, Suite 1900, Portland, Oregon 97204. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant. There are 2 other folks here tonight that would be happy to answer questions if you have any. One is Dan Grimberg. Dan talked to you a moment ago during citizen input. Dan is with West Hills, and the other person is Mike Peoples with OTAC. OTAC is the applicant's project engineer and planner, so Mike's here to answer any engineering questions you might have. So I think our presentation is pretty straightforward tonight. We agree with the staff report to City Council. We certainly agree with and appreciated the DRB's unanimous recommendation to you for approval of both the zoning map amendment and the annexation. As Kim told you, no one testified at all, either in favor or in opposition to the applications at the DRB hearing on February 11th. So we'd ask you to adopt both ordinances on first reading tonight. And as I said, we're here to answer your questions if you have any. And Mayor, you may have had a question about the legal description.
Well, I did. Do you want to go with that for now, or do you want me to re-ask?
No, I think I understood your question. So, let me pull up the right page. So if you look at Exhibit A to the annexation packet, it's the bold heading at the top, Exhibit A, legal description. I think your question was why it referred to Stafford Meadows Phases 2 and 3 annexation area when we're calling the plat in this development Frog Pond. Is that a fair?
Yeah, and be clear that the legal action, whatever we take, clearly applies to the right piece of ground, yeah.
So let me say two things that may answer your question. First of all, this title has no legal meaning whatsoever. It's just a title. We could in fact remove it, but I don't think it does any harm. We meet the approval criteria. What's important is the legal description, which goes on this page and the next. Metro will review that, and the Oregon Department of Revenue reviews it, and they just want to make sure the legal description closes. But this legal description doesn't use the phrases Stafford Meadows or Frog Pond Meadows at all, because all of this property is unplatted, so it's just a meets and bounds description. So the first thing I would tell you is it's just a title. But then I'll tell you how it got there. We had to submit these applications in October. When we submitted them in October, we were still calling this Stafford Meadows. In consultation with staff, we changed it to Frog Pond to represent the name of the neighborhood that this is being developed in. So the fact that in the later materials you've seen, Mayor, refer to it as Frog Pond, but the legal description title, not the legal description, but the title is Stafford Meadows, it just reflects the fact that that legal description was prepared and submitted before they made the switch to Frog Pond, has no legal import whatsoever.
Okay, thank you for making that clear.
You're welcome. Thank you for
Council,
the question. Any
any other questions for the applicant? Not at this time.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. I have not received any speaker cards from any member of the audience that would like to address this. Is there any member of the public that would like to address this? I know the applicants always, are kind of incredulous when we don't have anybody speak, but I think that's also indicative of the robust public process that has occurred before now. And the fact that we do a lot of our public hearings different than some other communities in that development plans get vetted before annexations are proposed. So, no one to speak. If that is the case, I will close the public hearing. I assume that the applicant has no further rebuttal to give or information they want to convey to us. Is that accurate?
That is correct, Mayor.
Thank you. In that case, this hearing pertains to both ordinance number 832, which is the annexation, and 833, which is the zone map amendment. We need to take the votes separately on those actions. So the council, as chair, I'd be open to a motion on the first of those, ordinance number 832, if it please the council.
I move to approve ordinance number 832 on first reading.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second, we approve ordinance number 832 on first reading. Any discussion? Councilor Akkervall.
I would just say that how pleased and wonderful I think it is that those terrific trees, the Oregon white oaks, are going to remain a part of this area inside Wilsonville. And I saw those trees this morning. And I think as Wilsonville's created neighborhoods in our city, we've tried to pay attention to the trees that exist, and that's just really made special communities and special neighborhoods. It's going to be a tremendous asset. So I was admiring them this morning when when I saw the space, and it's great to see those carrying forward, as this area will definitely change in the future. But yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments?
No.
Well, it may or may not be social engineering, but I think that we do make a concerted effort to try to facilitate growth of neighborhoods where people want to be. And I think that our successes in Charbonneau originally and in much of the rest of the city, more recently in Villebois, and I'm very confident and look forward to achieving the same kind of things in Frog Pond, and I think we're on good track to do that. So I appreciate the work that the private sector has done on this, as well as the public sector, and I think that we're on a good path and look forward to that coming to fruition. So I see this as appropriately prepared, and I'm fully in favor of moving forward on it. Is there any other discussion before a vote on 832? If not, council, if you're ready to vote, all in favor of the motion to approve ordinance number 832 on first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes 3-0. Is there a motion on ordinance number 833?
I move to approve the ordinance 833 as read in the first reading.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. We approve 833 on first reading. This is the zone map amendment that deals with the uses proposed for the annexation acreage that we've just adopted. Any questions or discussion on this? No. If not, I will call for the vote on motion to approve 833 on first reading. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, passes 3-0. Thank you very much. Thank you. One piece of new business, resolution number 2727.
Resolution number 2727, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville supporting a Clackamas County tobacco retail license.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Mayor Knapp, City Councilors. I'm Mark Ottenett and serve as the City of Wilsonville's Public Government Affairs Director. Resolution number 2727 is a resolution supporting a Clackamas County tobacco retail license. The Board of County Commissioners, acting in its role as the local Board of Health, is considering implementing a county-wide tobacco retail license for commercial retail sales of tobacco and other nicotine products. County Commissioner support for the proposed TRL, Tobacco Retail License Ordinance, from local jurisdictions has included so far the cities of Happy Valley, Gladstone, Milwaukee, Oregon City, Sandy, West Linn, and the Clackamas County School District Superintendents. The purpose of the Tobacco Retail License Program would be to enforce current state tobacco control laws with the objective of halting sales to persons under the age of 21. The Oregon Legislature raised the minimum age for a person to legally buy or obtain tobacco products, inhalant delivery systems, and tobacco product devices from age 18 to 21 effective January 1, 2018. However, when enacting the minimum age requirement for the legal purchase of tobacco products, the legislature did not create a statewide commercial retail licensing program, as has been done with alcohol and cannabis products previously. Health authorities are unanimous that raising the age to purchase tobacco to 21 years, plus a strong tobacco retail license system, are evidence-based strategies that help reduce youth initiation of tobacco. Clackamas County reports that 14% of a random sample of retailers sold tobacco to minors during state inspections from November 27 to March 2018. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention report that cigarette smoking is responsible for more than 480,000 deaths per year in the United States. The total economic cost of smoking in the U.S. is more than $300 billion a year. including nearly $170 billion in direct medical care for adults and over $156 billion in lost productivity due to premature death and exposure to secondhand smoke. The Oregon Health Authority reports that